Greetings everyone, and welcome to the 111th session in the Power Virtual User Group Technical Webinar Series. This is the last session for 2021, and I would be grateful if you can provide any feedback for the series in general or for individual sessions. Just drop me an email, or if you've got suggestions for future topics. You can find details and replays of all past sessions on the PowerVug info page at ibm.biz/PowerVug. I'm excited to once again have two expert speakers today to deliver the session. And today's topic is IBM Navigator for a whole new world. I will let Tim Rowe and Lora Powell introduce themselves shortly. Tim has delivered many sessions on this virtual user group in the past and loves doing live demos, so today will be no exception, so hold on to your seats. And I'm also delighted that Lora has been able to join us to give us a perspective on performance side, the PDI side. So I would like to remind participants that questions and comments can be entered via the chat window. And so without any further ado, let me hand over to Tim and Lora to introduce themselves.
Well, thank you very much, Jyoti. Really appreciate being here. I enjoy these very much. It's a lot of fun. And so Tim Rowe, I am the architect for application development and systems management. For the IBM operating system, I'm part of the development lab, and this Navigator project has been probably my all-consuming project that I've had a ton of fun with for over the last about year and a half, 2 years now. We've been working on this to roll it out. So we're really excited about this. And as Jyoti said, I think, Lora, what do we have? 5 slides, maybe all total. So this will be pretty much live demo the entire time. And I would highly encourage you to go ahead and ask questions in the chat. You're going to be kind of help directing some of the different things that we will be showing and seeing today. So Lora, go ahead and let's introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Lora Powell, and I am team lead for the Performance Data Investigator tool, part of the Navigator and now part of the new Navigator, which has been very exciting to get going, and it's just such a great place to work with these tools. And looking forward to providing you some more information about how to use PDI and what kind of functionality we have.
Wonderful. So I'll go ahead and get started, and we'll get through the slides so we can kind of get on to some of the funner stuff.
Okay, I've been told I was really quiet. I'm going to interrupt real quick, Tim, just to see how I'm sounding. Is this better?
Yeah, it's better. You just gotta remember, you gotta talk through the microphone,
talk louder.
Not at the microphone.
Okay.
Yeah, talk louder. You'll be
I will
fine.
work at that. Let me know again if it's too quiet. Thank you.
Absolutely. So to get started, Navigator. Let's just kind of step back, look at where we've been, the history of this product. The original Navigator was the iSeries Navigator, right? It was the Windows install. It was part of the Access for Windows product. It originally came out in 1995. Was when it was originally created. It was a Windows PC install entity, and surprisingly, a lot of it was actually built in Java back then as well, and it leveraged Java Swing as the user interface components to show the widgets and whatnot on the screen. And one of the little side notes, I actually was one of the original developers that actually worked on this project. I didn't actually work on the UI at that point. I actually created a lot of the APIs under the covers that we ended up using for this guy. Yeah, I'm gonna ignore Peter's comment about it was the best of all the versions. I'm gonna have to disagree, because I think what we have with the new one has the potential to be significantly better. But there you go. I'm just showing my bias. But thank you for your comment nonetheless, Peter. And then the versions, and his comment is actually fair in a one respect, because the versions that we came out with for the web in 2008, we really never redesigned it. Basically what we did is we took that original PC Navigator and we just ported it to the web. We took out all the Java Swing components and we replaced it with HTML web widgets. And it was based on a technology at the time called AUIML. And they were the ones that kind of took out the Java Swing and replaced the HTML. And it was a fairly easy update in some respects, but yet on the other hand, it really wasn't a web interface. It was a fat client PC interface that we moved into the web. And then in 2013, we shoehorned in some Dojo support for dealing with large lists of data. And that made a big difference and made much of the interface usable, but certainly it was never created, designed up to be truly that web-centric design of things. So if we look at why do we need to change things up, well, there's a couple really good reasons. Some of the infrastructure that the old web navigator is running on really isn't supported, hasn't been supported for a fair few years, and so there's some potential for some security exposures with some of the older open source web technologies that are there. And so it was time to move on to something that was going to be far more secure, usable, supported, those kind of things. The old web interface was really not a multi-system management thing like what we had in the PC version, right? So that was kind of a downgrade, if you will. So the good news is, that was something we wanted to address. We wanted to be able to have that user interface that allowed a single pane to manage not just one node, but many nodes. And then, obviously the look and feel, obviously it was, pretty creaky from just a look perspective, as well as the performance and usability. Maybe not the best. The only benefit that the old web navigator had, I will say, is there was an awful lot of stuff in there. So there was a lot of functionality. So when we look at, where we wanted to go, what we wanted to do, we sat back, we talked with many of you in the community on, if we're going to create a new web interface, what are some of the design points that need to be part of the original design from the beginning? And so this line in blue is kind of, if you will, really the statement of our overall strategic direction for this interface. We wanted to provide a tool to provide a secure, because in today's world, security continues to be a significant piece of the puzzle. Modern, right? We wanted to make it look much like other interfaces. There's some design requirements that we needed to conform to from an IBM design perspective that we wanted to take advantage of, and we wanted to be able to access, manage, and monitor all IBM I nodes within a customer infrastructure, and do that in new ways. Because some of the ways that we've done this for years with the PC version, with the old web version, right? While some of those things may have worked, some of those things were not necessarily easy. And so we wanted to do things such that, we wanted to help the administrator do their job better. So those were some of the key tenets. So when we're ready to do this project, we kind of took a look at what's going on in the web industry. What are the technologies that we could use? Well, we settled on Angular as our web UI technology base. So that's the display mechanism. And then if any of you have listened to Scott Forsty and I over the past 6-7 years, you've heard us almost anytime we talk, we make mention of something called IBM SQL Services. And this is a significant strategic change in the operating system on how we provide data to be accessed, as opposed to the more traditional CL commands or system APIs. We've got an amazing SQL engine that's built into the operating system that has some significant abilities to manipulate data, which makes sense because it is an engine for doing database things. So that's what it does, is data. So we've extended that to allow access and update, monitoring, manipulation of IBM data. And so we decided to build this web interface using that in every place possible as our data retrieval engine. So it's really from the ground up, we've reinvented how this Navigator interface works. And then the last item is the end-to-end security, ensuring that from all points you could leverage things like TLS and things like that. Okay. There is one question from Peter. We still have to use a single sign-on, not being fully complete, or at least not working in the new Navi. Well, yeah, single sign-on is one of the things that did not get put into the original, the first delivery. The first delivery of this came out in September. And I will tell you, the original plan was that this interface was to be delivered sometime late next year. We accelerated that delivery, which I know is unheard of, by over 6 months. We actually delivered early. So kind of a crazy thing. And as part of doing that, the ability to do single sign-on from day one didn't make the cut. So that's one of those things that we're looking at getting in the not too distant future, because we do understand the importance of that. Okay. Laura, do you want to cover this page?
Sure. This is a page on just what I'm going to be presenting, just to give you a kind of a placeholder and allow you the link to the documentation. So we're going to be covering system monitors, how to set up and watch your data, and provide commands to indicate when something has exceeded a threshold. We're going to talk about managing your collections, talk about the configuration and setup, what you need to do, because there are some things that you need to do to get the graph history data. And we'll show you, excuse me, show you some examples of graph history. And then I will go into some depth on investigate data, showing you a lot of perspectives, and with that, providing some functionality tips along the way. And that's it. And I hope you can hear me better this way. Use something, yeah. I'll work on that.
Yeah, Laura, you may need to switch your audio over to the phone, because you are breaking up a little bit.
Okay. Okay. I will try that.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to keep rolling. So Navigator is shipped as part of SS1 option 3. As a result, all of the PTFs required are part of the HTTP PTF group. Now, with that said, the reality is you really only need the HTTP PTF group on the GUI node that you want to, on the IBM that you're going to use as your GUI node. You do not need to have Navigator running on every single system in your enterprise. Yet you can still manage each and every system. You need to have it running on one system. I do encourage you to have the latest database PTF groups, as we are leveraging a lot of the SQL services, and those do need to be on your endpoint systems, but only if you want to have and ensure all of the latest support is working. If we attempt to use a service that's not there, we'll just give you an error message and tell you, yeah, this isn't going to work until you get this installed. So documentation can be found on our support page. And like I say, we released this at the very end of September. We have since released one round of updates where we added new functionality. We have our second round of updates that will be coming out in the end of December, kind of like a Christmas present. We'll be dropping it right before Christmas. So again, more new function that we're delivering, and we're going to be on this cadence of continuing to update and deliver new features, new functions for the foreseeable future. And we will be on probably a 1 to 2 month cadence. I think our next drop is scheduled for like March 1st, and then we will have another drop probably mid-April. Is kind of what we have currently scheduled out right now for our next targeted releases of new functionality along the way. Okay, enough charts. Yeah, Peter, your question, can you clarify the PTF group levels, latest? When I say latest, it's always relative to today. If you get the most current version that's out there, then yeah, you will get the latest versions of code. So we'll be updating that on a regular basis. Even though it came out in September, we update the HTTP PTF group whenever we need to update it. That is something that can be updated weekly if we really needed to. So we continue to update that HTTP PTF group. So we updated the group number in September, and we updated the group in, we'll be updating it again at the end of December. And we support this interface, right? So currently right now I have my screen up, and you'll see that I'm accessing this particular system here, this UT system. You can run this support on a 7.3 and 7.4 system. So if you got the latest version of the HTTP at the end of September, this interface would be working on both 7.3 and 7.4. Laura put the link to the PTF page out in the chat, so you can kind of see that for yourself as well. Now, one of the things that was just a ton of fun about this project, and very different than I think how we've done a lot of other projects, certainly recently, is my team here in the development lab. Yeah, we got some very talented developers, but they write code. They don't actually manage IBM systems. It's not what we do. We write code, we build applications, we create tools. So you know, how to actually do the management of the system is something that, you know, we needed some insight into. So I was able to gather a team of advisors, a group of IBM champions, some key customers as part of our large user group. There was a couple of ISVs, some business partners, and we got the people in all of these organizations that actually manage one, or in some cases, hundreds of IBM systems on a daily basis. That's what they do. They manage systems. And we got together on a very regular basis. We got together, you know, once, twice a month in different times to pick their brains collectively as a group on what challenges do they have when it comes to dealing with job management, memory management, file shares, performance monitoring, and work through how to do things maybe better. And a lot of fun. We got some incredible input, and a lot of the features that we've delivered in this first round were the key things that this group helped us identify as these are the must-haves. Now, we know we don't have everything in this new version of Navigator, but we will continue to update and add new things, like I said, on an incredibly regular cadence. Okay, so first off, I got our dashboard where you can go and you can add in systems that you want to monitor. You can see I've got a fair number of systems here that I've got on my thing, and I've got little statuses about what's going on. For some, whether it's the authority is set wrong, the system is down, not certain. We could look into that if we felt like it, but I don't necessarily care at this point. I'm just here for example. There's two different ways you can view this information. This is our bubble view. It's really nice if you have a limited number of systems, but for those that have many systems, right, we have what's called more of a list view. So I can see all my systems in a list. I have the ability to do filtering, so I can very quickly find, if I wanted to find, a system, the STEV systems, right there they are. The one thing you will find about this table widget in the GUI, it's incredibly interactive. Far more so than anything you would have ever have dealt with in the past. And so we're able to do some things just because of that allow us to be very different than in the past implementations. So Peter asked, is it possible to create system groups like in the original? It is something that we have considered. We haven't done it yet. And really the main reason that we haven't done it is, well, one, it's a bunch of extra work to do it, and we wanted to understand first, with this new table widget and the ability to sort, filter within here, we didn't know if we really needed to be able to do that, because the organizational stuff, right? Yes, system groups were nice from an organizational perspective, but being able to sort and find things so quickly in here, it's a different model. So it's something we've considered. Isn't there yet? Maybe in the future. Okay, so from here, you can choose which one of these interfaces you prefer to look at, if you want the bubble view or the list view. That is all done underneath your connection properties, right? You can go into here and you can choose which view you want to set. Now, there's a few other things that I need to point out as part of the connection properties that are likely going to be of interest. Now, you may have noticed here, I've got a green check mark, right? If I go and click on one of these systems, I'm going to pop over. I'm now in here. I'm managing this system. And all of this was done in such a way to, without, notice I didn't get prompted for another user ID and password. You might be wondering, okay, how did I do that, right? I can go click to a different system. Again, no user ID and password. So if I go back to my dashboard, there's a connection properties here called authentication. We support 3 different authentication mechanisms today. One, by the default, is to use the same user and password that was provided when you signed into this GUI node. So I do have to provide a user ID and password. When I originally connected to this UT25, I was prompted, I entered in my user ID and password, and I'm going to use that same user ID and password for every other connection that I'm trying to get at. The other option is I could do a prompt for, where I could prompt for every time I wanted to go to a new connection, I would get prompted. I could enter in a user ID and password. We would use that password for the life of this session. And then the third option, which is nice, but we don't encourage people to use it, is we would actually then save your user ID and password in an encrypted file on the GUI node. So those are the 3 methodologies that we have today. And yeah, at some point, a 4th will be added, which would be the single sign-on support. All right, let's go dive into one of these systems. So, like I said, I don't have to have things running on a system. I'm not working with this UT25 system. I'm working with Common One. Well, Common One's not even in my data center. This is sitting over in Michigan. This is the system that Larry Bolheis puts up together for us. to use for the Common North America Conference. And so we're going to work and play with this system for some of our stuff today. So some of the things that you can do over here on the left navigation, you can hover over and you can see all the different features, functions that have been made available from day one. There's a few interesting things that are part of this. Let's kind of dive into this just a little bit at a time, and we'll kind of wander from there. So first, active jobs. This is work active job. If I wanted to get to this page, right, I hovered over the little gear, I went to active jobs. We also have up here at the top, you'll notice there's a search capability. So in here, I can go enter in whatever I want. So if I went and typed in active, right, I would see active jobs, system, job queue, memory pools. I could type in the command, right, work, and I would see all of the work commands that we currently have in here. So it gives you some, you can put in either the CL commands or, different terms that allow you to get to, click on it. Immediately, I'm going to get jumped over to the memory pools interface where I can see my memory pools, for example. Now, active jobs, this one I like in particular for a couple of reasons, because this is really, you might think it's just active jobs, but it's potentially radically different. If you look at the green screen, you probably have 5 or 6, maybe 7 metrics that you can look at. If you looked at this in the old Navigator, you maybe had 15 or 20 metrics for a job you could look at. Well, in here, I've got like 50 metrics that I can look at, which is kind of like, what? That's a lot. Now, additionally, we came up with this default. You can customize this however you want. So for example, I don't care about detailed status, so I can just grab this column and I can just go toss this down on the end. I also don't care about enhanced job type, so I'm going to go toss that down in the end. I actually want to see CPU before I see current user. So there, I've readjusted. Now, this view that you see here, this will be my default view going forward until such time as I change it again. So if I wanted to look at all of the columns, right, you can see right now we only have 7 or 8 columns. There's a little ellipsoidal sitting over here that's important to understand. I'm going to point out this guy here. We're going to talk about this guy here. And I want you to remember this guy down here. There's a little arrow that you can barely see at the bottom of my screen. I'm going to point out, we're going to talk about those 3 things as we kind of go through this. So let's start with this guy. This is all the list of available columns. You can see there's a long list of stuff here. And there's some things that are new that I happen to think are really kind of cool. Client application, client user, workstation, port, host. Let's just kind of toss those guys over into the magic list. We'll click OK. I can then go sort on my client application. And it's going to, oh, look at that. I've got data in here because I've connected with the Navigator from a particular workstation with a particular port, particular users. I can see Lora's connected here. And any of these others that, happen to use this value, you could actually see a little bit what's going on for these particular pre-start jobs. Yeah, I was pretty excited about that too, Douglas. Ellie, let me go ahead and answer your question. Does the managed systems have to be on the latest PTF levels to be able to manage them from this interface? No, absolutely not. You can, there may be features that don't work if you're not at the latest, but you'll just get an error message. So it helps if you're at the latest, but you don't need to be. And you can also manage a 7.2 system from this interface, even though we don't support you running it on 7.2. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting information. I would encourage you to go explore all of the columns. The reason that we have all of this new data is because of what we're using for our data. I'm going to click on the SQL button now. We actually give you the SQL that we're using to generate the data for this table. So you can see the new SQL service, QSys2, active job info, as well as what are the parameters that we're using on that to generate the data. And we give this to you for a few reasons. Gives you the ability to, one, see what the heck we're doing, and then, yeah, we encourage you to go steal this and go use it for your own evil devices. This is truly the way of the future for dealing and accessing information. We want to make this as easy as possible to do. You may notice there's a Run SQL button down here. And you might go, yeah, but it never works. Well, yeah, that's easy to get to work. Let me show you how this works. Oh, no, look at that. I don't have ACS running today. Let me go fix that quick. So if I had my Access Client Solutions up and running, give me 30 seconds and I'll pop that open. There we go. I got ACS is oh, I see what the problem is. Because I went into full screen with my browser, ACS is not being happy with me. Okay, there we go. Let's just do this for a quick second. Under the tools bar, there's Navigator requests. I need to start a connection with the system I'm currently working with. So if I go look here, I am connected to common1.idevcloud.com. So if I go back to here, common1.idevcloud.com, if I start a connection with this, I have to sign in. It's going to go ahead and it takes, I don't know, 30 seconds, a minute. Once you have this connection created, it'll be happily just sit open there for the life of your ACS session. So it'll be out there for a longer period of time, which is nice. But I've now created a connection from my PC to this Common One system. I'm listening for requests. So now I'm running on this Common One system. I can send a request to my PC. So if I click Run SQL Scripts, now it's going to actually, oh, SQL has been launched in the IBM Access Client Solutions. And sure enough, if I go pop over to my ACS window, you'll see I've got Run SQL Scripts and the SQL happily in there, and I can go ahead, run it, and I would get magically the same data. Kind of cool. Okay. Now, I talked about that third little arrow down at the bottom. I'm working with active jobs. I've already said I'm Common One. Well, maybe I want to go look at active jobs on a different system. I don't need to go all the way back out to here to the dashboard, go find another system and go work for it. If you hover over this little arrow, it opens what we call our system tray. These systems, right, are all in the same order as they would be out on that main dashboard. I can scroll from left to right. I can go pick, I'm gonna go look at Sync 18, double click on it, and there we go. I have now switched over and I am now managing active jobs on System Sync 18. Everything else stayed the same. I have my columns were what I had stated before. Way we go, kind of slick that way. Okay, any questions so far? Or if you have questions, all right, keep dumping them into the chat. Couple
I
of
think
the other
we're all up to
areas that I
date,
want to.
Tim. Sorry. I think
Great.
we're all up to
Thank you,
date
Jesse.
with the questions, so carry on.
Active subsystems, right? I can go look at active subsystems and I can see all the different jobs that are active. I can go click on one of these and go work with jobs, et cetera, et cetera. So a BRMS configuration coming to the new Navigator. I wish it was, and I wish it was sooner. That is the #1 question that keeps getting asked. I have been working with the BRMS team to try to get them to get this added. It's on the list. I don't know when that will happen at this point. So there's an RFE out there for that. If you want to go vote on the RFE and get your friends to vote for it, that would be great. Might help change the priority of that one. Because we're using SQL services, some of the things that are now available that were before, I can go look at my active JVM jobs. So I can go, actually, I'm going to go back over here to Common One, and I can go see all of the JVM. This is work JVM job. Now, we don't have any actions today. Those are things that'll be coming in the future, but this was one of those, hey, this is still useful information, and it's right here at a click of a button. Some of the other items, if I go down to the next section, right, licensing information. You never were able to get to the license information in the old Navigator. So this is brand new functionality, and you can work with and manage a lot of the information about your license keys and whatnot here. So we're excited about having that now part of the additions. Some of the other items, some of the new support, some of the iSCSI configurations. If you're using iSCSI for stuff, right, you'll actually be able to see that information here. I do have one device there, I believe. Oh, of course, the system that I know has a bunch of stuff on it, which is this RCH WACO. Obviously, the development team took that system down just minutes ago because it was up earlier today. Oh well, the joys of live demos. So, Paul, can you export to a spreadsheet? We've added it in some places. So here, example, active jobs. I can export the selected items, or I can select all. Now, the all is a little bit misleading at this point because it's not all 356 entries. It's all the entries that are part of this screen. So right now I'm showing 100 entries. So that would just export these 100 entries to a spreadsheet. If I really wanted to get a specific list, I could update, create, add more to the table. Or, ideally what a lot of people, if you think about exporting, you may want to add some filter capabilities up here. Maybe I want to look for Q user instead. And so I want to have a specific list of things that I want to export. So in this case, this 99, and I can go ahead and export that. So not every interface have we enabled the export. It is something that I think would make sense to have on every table, and we'll be hopefully adding that in the future as well. Yep, Evie, I agree. Advanced Job Scheduler. Again, that one is also on the list. We're working to see if we can figure out how to get that in. The other item that we're looking at adding probably sooner, though, is just the regular system job scheduler. So we'll probably be adding that support in ahead of the advanced job scheduler. Sundar, excellent question. IBM ARE versus NewNav. What would be your preference for managing PTFs? So again, because of the accelerated delivery mechanism that we did, right, today within PTFs for IBM, for Nav, we give you the ability to see what's there. great ability to do viewing. You can see everything. There's some capabilities. I can look at the properties. If there's cover letters, you could go and actually see the cover letters. But today, we don't have support for sending, distributing, or applying PDFs. So ARE is definitely the best choice today. We are looking at the ability to do what you're asking for in here is still an open book and is something that we want to be able to provide, but that will be coming at a later point in time. So this is one of those stay tuned on the PTF management capabilities of NewNav. We will be adding them. They're just not there on day one. And Daniel, is there a support document for setting the NewNav up as HTTPS? Yes, there is. Lora will drop that URL link in here, but it's actually surprisingly easy. There's two different components that you need to be aware of when it comes to HTTPS. First is the connection to this server. This is going into the web admin GUI and configuring that admin 1 server on this GUI node for TLS. Under the bookmarks, we have IBM Web Administration for I. If I click on that guy, it's going to launch me over to that interface. And if I go into application servers, I would then click on admin 1. The admin 1 is the server that our new GUI interface is running on. And there is a configure TLS wizard link right here. I would configure that. And now when I connect, I would use HTTPS. From there, I need to connect to each of these endpoints with TLS. And you can say most of these I don't use TLS, but this one I am. Common 1, I'm actually connected with TLS to this system. Super easy to do. On each endpoint, you need to go enable the host servers for TLS. So you need to go configure the host servers. There's a page, it's out on our documentation page that'll point to the documentation on how to do that. If I go to configuration properties, TLS connection, it's simply a matter of clicking on one of these. If I say on, we're going to go grab the certificate. If it's not already in the certificate store for my web browser, you'll get the ability to add it. So right now, I've already got this certificate in here. Matter of fact, if I go look at my web trust store, one of these certificates is the one that we added for Common 1. I don't remember which one this is. It's probably that guy right there. And that's the certificate that's in the trust store that we use to make this secure handshake and connection with each of these endpoints. It's really that easy. Excellent question. Some of the other items that we've delivered, system status is, I think, quite fascinating. There is, again, an SQL service that we've provided out here. This guy right here, QSys2 system status. There is so much cool information in this service. And so what we've done is we've taken some of that and we've broken it out into these little different windows. So you can get a view of different areas, whether it's general, some jobs, processors, address, disks, memory, system. Look at that, system serial number. I couldn't get that before. I can dive into my memory pools information. Actually, I can flip over and look specifically at what's going on in each of those. I also have, my some kind of a threshold that's coming up there on my disk ASP. So really fascinating information, as well as some high-level database stuff. The other general view of the world that I need to point out is this guy here, security information. All of the security components. Many of these are system values, but they're not completely. We've taken and we've listed them all right here. So you've got one-stop shopping for looking at a lot of these system values and all the security stuff, all one spot. There is lots and lots of other things in here. File shares, I just want to point out a couple key things here. Here's all our file shares. I can see whether or not each file share is a real path or a broken path. I can see that in this case, I have a user that's using this file share. Under properties, I can see who's signed in, right? And I can go talk to that person if I need to turn off this file share or whatever. One of the other frustrations administrators mentioned is under file shares, they often have to deal with users disabling themselves. Well, under actions, we have a new interface, disabled user IDs. We will give you a list of all user IDs that have currently disabled themselves through the net server. So you can then go and re-enable them. So lots of different things. And again, we could go on, but I want to give Lora some time because part of the other area that we've done an awful lot with is the world of performance. And so we're going to switch over to Lora, and we're going to have Lora take you through some of the things that are here, both under our Performance Data Investigator area, as well as what we've provided today so far in our monitor support. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Lora, why don't you go ahead and...
I'm just making
can
Lora
you hear me
presenter.
better this way? Yep, now I can share. Great. Perfect. All right, so as Tim said, we are going to start out with system monitors. Where did my, there we go. There's my system. I've already clicked into the system I want to manage, and then we will start out here with the system monitors. And it's somewhat the same as what it was in the Heritage Navigator, but the interface is so much better and so much easier to work with. There's also a few added features that are nice to have as well. So through the actions is where you start. You can create a new system monitor. You can also start and stop the monitor servers. So that's very helpful. And then some really important things like migrate heritage monitors. So if you have monitors in the old Navigator, you can come over here and you can say, I want to migrate this one to, or I want to pull that in. You just click on which ones you want to. I may have already done this one, so we'll see. So that one has already been ported over. So it would be here. I think it was this one. So that is really handy. And then there's also a way to copy a monitor once you've created it to another system. So if I want to copy this one to another one of my systems, I can select that. And now the same monitor is available on both systems. So let's see. So when you create a monitor, we're going to look into the details of that. Let's go into properties. So once you've created it, you can go into property, basically the same interface. So this would be exactly what you would see for creating a new one, but obviously the fields would not be filled in. So I've created the name, I've set a description, and then I've moved some of the metrics from this side over to here. And that's the interface similar to other things within the Navigator now, and it works very swiftly. So we've got batch logical database IO rate, and you can set the collection interval. So these are smaller intervals than what you see on the standard collection services collection. So that's one advantage to setting monitors on, is that you can go with smaller intervals, and then you can set thresholds. And as you can see here, there's two thresholds available. I opened one of them. So if I can set this to trigger at 10 and then reset at 5, I can put a command in there. I've got some commands in these. And let's see that one, find one here. There we go. So I am sending myself a message whenever the monitor triggers. And so if it hits over 75% for CPU utilization, then I will get an email. And these are the monitor variables that are being used. So you can actually get the value, the duration, the monitor name, and other specifics. There's a whole list of monitor variables that you can utilize. So that is setting it up. Once you've modified anything or created it, you press OK to save it. Now this shows started, and you can see here it's restarting it because I've made changes. When you create one, it is showing as stopped. So then you do have to go in and say start that monitor. So in a few minutes, then it'll change over to started instead of starting. So once you get a monitor going, there's a lot of things you can do with it. I'm in trouble with my right click. There we go. One thing is the event log. So you can go in and view what has happened, what thresholds and triggers have been hit. And we'll look at this one. We'll go into properties. And you can see here at the top is the event property. So that's showing you what threshold was hit. So this is a reset threshold. That means that the number went back down. So the value of 5.84 was less than the 50 reset threshold that we set for one interval at this time, and the actual value again. So, and then you can see the properties of the monitor that you had set up. So you have both sets of information there, which is very nice. And then you can also delete these when you don't want them there anymore. Another thing that you can look at is a summary. And this is a summary of this specific monitor, send message, and it has everything that's set up on it. So you've got all your metrics, you've got every trigger and command, reset and command. And then here's the second trigger and command, reset and command. So everything that you want to view about this monitor is right here. There's nothing else. There's no other details about this monitor available because this is all there is. So this was provided as a response to an RFE, request for enhancement, and it just kind of helps highlight that we do get to those things. When you put them out there, if we hadn't had that RFE, we probably wouldn't have made that page. And so we said when we were making the monitors, what else can we do? What else do we need to do? Oh yeah, there's this RFE out there. Somebody wanted to see the commands as well as the other information on the summary page. And so that was added. And as Tim said, you know, we are not the ones using these tools, we're creating them. So when you provide us the information about how you want to use it and what's missing, then we are able to integrate that into the product. And then an important part about the monitors is being able to visualize the data. Now here we have investigate monitor data, and these are just the single metrics. So this is what we first came out with. If you use the older Navigator, single metric viewing, and I can click on batch logical database IO, and we'll get the data as that's being created. What we don't have yet is the dashboard view, and so that will be coming out in the first half of 2022. We will be able to show you all the metrics for one monitor on one page, which is what we had before. And then, let's see, let's go back to monitors.
So
Laura,
there's a question. There's a question from Samir.
Oh, okay.
Is there an easy way to find out how many DB2 Connect users are active on a system using this? I don't know if that's something we could get through PDI, but you might be able to get that easier through the active jobs and looking at the pre-start jobs and the Connect information. Correct?
Yeah, we do not have that information in collection services, so that would be a change that they would have to make, and if they provide it, then we could do it, but I don't know. I think maybe it would be something what you said is that it's already kind of available in another way that would probably make more sense to keep doing, but I can look into it too.
Yeah.
All right.
Great. Thanks.
So that is system monitors. Yep. Any other questions on system monitors?
You're good. Keep going.
The other thing I wanted to mention right here. What's that?
Go ahead. You're good.
Okay. Tim is going to show something later on the viewing monitors that, or data dashboard, or custom charts is what it's called, where you can view metrics on multiple systems at once. And that's one of the new features with the new Navigator. So we'll be looking at that today as well. I'll make sure I cut off early enough to do that. And so holler at me, Tim, if you need the time. So the next thing we want to look at is the configuration. So the configuration has been streamlined a little bit. It's a lot nicer to use. We don't have as many separate commands that you need to select. You get all the information on the configuration for collection services right here. You've got your library, your interval, cycle time, Now we've got the create database files during collection, and what that provides is the database files and members that are needed for viewing the collection with Performance Data Investigator for the live collections, for the active one. So if you want to look at that one as it's active, you do have to have that set. Otherwise, when it cycles, then it will create the database files. And then the create system monitor database file members in standard collection is a little more deep. It provides a method for providing the system monitor collection data within your standard collection. And so there is a difference in the data that's being collected for the system monitors and the standard collection. The system monitor data is calculated. It's usually percentages and other numbers such as that, whereas the basic disk information that Collection Services provides is more discrete. It's something about commands to read and write the number, and then PDI calculates those numbers. So that's probably a little deep for today, but just to let you know that there's a way to create that. It wasn't available before. All right, so we can start and stop Collection Services right here. You can cycle it if you've made any changes and you want them to be effective right now. You can do that. And this little button here, this properties, is very nice, especially when you call into level 2 or something and there's something with your Collection Services and we ask, what is your Collection Services configuration settings? So you can just copy this whole page and hand that to us, and we will then be able to have all those answers. So close that. And let's go to the data to collect. This is pretty straightforward. We've got the different protocols that you can select. We usually have standard plus set. You can also customize. And when you customize now, let's see, why is that not selecting? There we go. You can say, I want to start out with standard plus, and then I want to change some. I want to remove some or add some. You can manipulate it that way so you get a little more information is what we're providing here. And also the information of what is included in the standard plus protocol, because that was not available on the screen before. It's not highlighted because you can't change it, but it does provide you that information so that you can know what you're getting. And then we've got the system monitor set up. So you can create system monitor collection without the system monitor itself. So you're not setting thresholds, you're not having commands to take effect, but you are creating that collection. And by standard, that is named with an R and then the Julian date, just like the standard collections default is a Q and then the Julian date. So this creates that file for you without setting up monitors. So you can have that data available to utilize without having set up monitors.
Irgendwie bin ich jetzt doppelt drin, einmal im Meeting und einmal mit dir.
I'm sorry?
Apologies, I
we
have
got you.
muted everyone.
Okay.
Thanks,
So
Jitsa.
one thing I wanted to point out is if you've set up system monitors and someone went in and set it to 30 seconds and you were getting a lot of data and you want to stop that, we've had a manual process before where you had to go in and tell Collection Services that you no longer want to collect at 30 seconds and you put it back to deep. You had to do that manually, and then you had to stop Collection Services and recycle it. And so now what we've done is we've integrated all those steps into one button. So if for some reason you're not sure why you're getting a lot of data that you don't want, you can go in here, you can select this reset button, cycle it if you want it to happen right now. Otherwise, it's going to happen at my next cycle, which is at midnight, but I'm going to turn it back on because I really don't want that to happen. But that's nice to have there. It's, we've had a lot of documentation out there and some support pages for it and questions about it sometimes, so now we've integrated that into the panel. And
Hey,
here's
quick question
the historical
for you, Laura.
data. Excuse me?
Hey, Laura.
Question. Okay.
A quick question for you. Yeah. Are there any plans to get rid of the database members in Collection Services?
We cannot do that. That's a fundamental way that we have designed the collections themselves, I guess. So it's actually really useful in a lot of ways. I know it's kind of a pain. It's different than standard database stuff, but it works really well for what we're doing. So I guess I would ask first.
The answer is no.
Why? What's that?
So the answer is no.
Yeah, it would be a big project, and it would, I'm not sure why we would need to do that. The only thing that I see as a bad side effect of that is having to run the alias command for accessing the data. We've got that integrated into it, and I'll show you in a minute how we've provided that information for you. But if there's other things that are, halting you from utilizing it because of that, I guess if you're implementing your own project with the data, then, maybe it adds a few hassles there. I understand that, but I don't think it's going to change. So for the historical data, you do have to turn this on. By default, when this was released in 7.3, we did not turn it on. So in the next release, it will be turned on by default, but 7.3 and 7.4 are not. So you would want to go in here and turn this on, and this is very handy stuff. It's very important, very nice, especially if you're missing the PM agent data that you used to get. This is one way you can get some of that back. And so you'd want to turn that on, and then the detailed data as well. So we've got two sets of data, and one is the summary data, and that is more high-level, compressed, summarized information about the CPU utilization max, the CPU utilization average, et cetera. But then the detailed data is actually supporting data behind that. So how did we get this CPU utilization average? Well, it came from these contributors is how we speak of it. And so you can save as many top contributors for that data that you want. If you save all, then that's everything that calculated to that average or max. But if you save the default, it's set to 20. So you're going to get the top 20 contributors to any metric. So if you need to drill into some information about why this CPU utilization was so high, you can find those top contributors and look at the one on the top. It's going to be, the most significant. So that gives you that information. But you can choose not to save that if you want. Now here you can save your summary data for up to 50 years, which is, as long as anybody needs anything. And then the detailed data, right now it's 60 days, but we are going to increase that. I'm just not sure yet what Shauna has decided on that, but just to let you know as well that the historical data does not take up much space at all. In some calculations, I don't remember the numbers, but I know that the historical data for a year's worth of data took less space than 1 day of collection services CS management collection object. So that's pretty significantly smaller, and so you get all that data for not much space. So, all right, so then once I've saved and possibly cycled, I would go out of that interface, and then I will have my collection services data as I want it. Okay, the next thing I wanted to cover is manage collections. So you can select one of these to filter down into just the collection services, disk watcher collections, or job watcher. We'll just go to all for now. And Tim explained very well all the column information stuff. And one thing that we wanted to show you is that we've added some additional columns for date and time information. So on old Navigator, we always provided the server time. And so that, I'm sorting it, I guess. That is probably what you most likely first think of is what time was it on the server when it cycled, when the collection started. And so here you can see it was midnight. And then, but there's also some need for and interest in finding out other information like when was it in my browser time. So this was Central Standard Time, and we're talking Mountain Standard Time. So it was at 11 p.m. Mountain Standard Time where my browser is set to. And then we also provide the UTC time just for clarifying any confusion. There's just a lot of things with our global market the way that we are right now. We need to be able to see things as the world sees them. And in fact, some of these Central Standard Time strings can be confusing as well because there's over 4 different CST labels across the world that mean different regions. And so we're actually going to be moving this to UTC format. So this would be UTC -6 for the Central Standard Time. And then that also helps with things like daylight savings time, because obviously when that happens, then all of a sudden we look, and if we see here, look at one that was 11 o'clock, or no, 12 o'clock, Central Daylight Time, there we go. If we go look at 12 o'clock daylight time, well, all of a sudden that's 2 hours different from my Mountain Standard Time. And so as we're looking at things across the globe, and like Tim said, he's looking at a system that's in Michigan, and that's 1 hour time difference, I believe. And so it just helps you to be able to relate to where things are in your time and in the world time. Let's see, and so the move, copy, and delete functions are here as they were before, but they're a very nice interface, a lot easier to use. We'll pop up this command for you. You can change the name, do what you want. We do some filtering to verify that you're doing, that what you are asking to do is valid. And then we select the move, and you'll get a pop-up to show that it was successful. I'm not sure why move is taking a while here, but we'll wait it out. Okay, this didn't take this long yesterday, so I'm going to X this out. Not sure what I will do to things, but I will fix that later. And now we will go in, and actually you can see it's still working on it, and I think I will get a pop-up eventually. Once it's finished, it'll tell me that it's done. So that was kind of a nice thing that I saw yesterday. Another thing on this table that is important to notice is this rebuild collection table action. So if you move collections around from one system to another, although with a new Navigator, you really don't have a need to do that because you can just point your Navigator to a different system. But if for some reason you did need to do that, you could pull them in, or you could move them around by copying them using green screen or something. And then what happens is that it gets out of sync with what the table that we keep intact to know about what collections are available. So if you ever don't see a collection that you expect, or there's collections there that you know don't exist anymore, somebody deleted them, you can go in and select to rebuild the collection table. And the nice thing here is that we now utilize all the options that are available from Collection Services for the rebuild command. If you're doing the rebuild command on a really large system with tons of libraries and collections and other files, we're scanning the whole system. So you might want to limit it by saying, I don't want to do all collection types, I just want to look for these specific CS files. And then you can also say, and I know they're only going to be in these libraries. So you select which libraries you want to be scanned, and that can really help that time. All right. And the last thing on this page is the properties panel. So we get the properties of the collection, and this just summarizes it for you. There was something like this in the old Navigator, but not quite as complete. So you get all the information that you might need about that collection. Next, we're going to go to graph history. So we're going to utilize some of that data that I talked about with the historical data. We'll go into the summary. I think my move command is causing a few problems. We'll see what I can do here.
So as that's sorting itself out.
Tim. What's that?
I was just going to say, while you're working on that, there were some questions in the chat window that Tim has answered.
I've been beating on them ever since we got them.
Yep.
Okay.
So some good questions.
Tim, maybe you want to take over from charts.
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
I'm not sure why my system is being a little flaky here.
You know, flaky happens some days.
I'll just bear with me, and I will make you host or make you presenter.
All right.
Just one
as
second.
As soon as it wakes up, we'll.
Yeah, we're there.
Go.
Thank you.
All right. So let's talk about custom charts for a minute. This is another mechanism that allows you to monitor what's going on a system. So let me get my chat window down here in place. So before I go to custom charts, I I just want to just address a couple of different questions. There's questions about whether or not we support dark mode for this. Today we do not. Something we could add in the future, possibly. Again, at this point in time, we considered it far more important to deliver some of the functionality that we need to manage and monitor the systems than it was to go spend resources allowing you to customize the colors in that respect. So again, on the list, just not something we've done today. And then there was a question from Brian about the filter areas, whether or not it's search left to right or search anywhere. And on all of our tables, we can control that filter. If there's a specific example, just do shoot me an email if there's a particular search order that you want to see. Okay, custom charts. So a dashboard, if there's this icon right over here from our main dashboard, it's called custom charts. And that's going to open up a new window. This new window allows you to have many dashboards, many views of different systems. So in this first example in the upper left, this is one system. This is UT25. And I am looking at 3 different metrics. I'm looking at CPU utilization, system ASP, and active job numbers. So these charts are all interactive, just like any of the PDI stuff. So I can click on one of these and I can turn metrics on or off. I can hover over different things to see the actual values that are being shown here. So these are 3 metrics, one system. This chart over here on the right, this guy here, I'm looking at active job number. So I'm looking at one metric and I'm looking at, well, 4 different systems. So in this case, you can see I'm getting a plot for each one of these systems along the way. So if I wanted to see, so we go cut off both of those. There we go. I have just one system. I can turn those off and turn on others. There's this one. And there's common one. So you can actually see all the different systems. Step 37 right now is not up. So therefore, that's why there's a little X here and here. I'm not connecting to that particular system. Down here, I'm looking at, again, single metric, multiple systems. And you could have up to 14 systems on a single chart that I could monitor a single metric. So I could look at CPU utilization across 14 systems on one chart. We think that's kind of cool. Now, that part is kind of nice. And there's a question on here, plan to have a customized default dashboard with desired metrics, right? So this is your place to go and customize your dashboards to get your desired metrics. So not only can you do this infrastructure that I just talked about, one metric, many metrics, one system, or one metric, many systems, you have control over the metrics that we display here. What do I mean by that? Right from the beginning, I've talked about us using SQL as the vehicle to go get data. So if I look under my actions, I have a charts here I have an action here for metrics. We're only providing 3 default metrics here. We could provide more, and maybe we'll add more defaults in the future. But right now, we have 3, and now you can go add your own custom metrics that leverage the SQL of your choice, which means that you're not tied to only a system metric. You could be tied to an application metric, any metric that you want based on the SQL that you want to craft. So in this example, if I go, look at my SQL, there's the SQL that I'm using to go retrieve the active threads metric. You know, I can go update this again. There we go. And obviously, you know, you'd need to go work on creating your SQL that you would put in here, and obviously run SQL scripts would be the place to create that SQL. So you have the freedom to add your own custom metrics to this. When you go to create a new chart, it's fairly simple. I go configure chart. I need to choose at the beginning, which type am I doing? Multiple metrics for a single system, one metric for multiple systems. Once you've chose that mechanism, that's going to limit how many things you can select below, i.e., you know, how many systems do I want to say, right? If I want to work with one system, right? Well, therefore, there we go. I've capped that out. I also can set the independent ASP that I want to use on that particular system if I'm using IASPs. And then I can go select the metrics that I'm interested in adding. So these are our custom metrics that are created. So the question was, in which file are stored the custom metrics? All of the metrics, all of the preferences for all of everything in the GUI is stored in a user preferences file that's on the GUI node today, and all any sensitive data is all encrypted. So that's all stored in one of the user preferences file under one of the Navigator URLs. I don't remember the IFS path that is stored in. So can you copy a chart and adjust the new one? Today, you know, that would be a great addition, but no, we don't have that today for the custom charts. I think a couple of the items that we want to add, you can import and export metrics and then move them to a different system so that, you know, I can create my metrics on one management node and I can go import those into a different one. But we don't have the actual charts where you can actually export or import a chart itself. From a systems management perspective, we do provide the import export for a few different key things. I showed you metrics. Under our dashboard, if I go to the list view, under actions, I can import and export the list of all of the systems as well that we're going to manage. So you could easily go set this up for another administrator once you've created the list of systems that you want to work with. This list of systems can also be adjusted simply by dragging and dropping a row in the table and moving it to where you want.
Hey, Tim, I'm glad
yes.
You got a good chance to explain those custom charts. I wanted to see if I could grab back the screen again and finish up with graph history and investigate data.
Yes, please go.
Thank you.
So,
okay.
Yeah, Jyote, can you switch?
Keeping her working today.
I've just switched. Thank you.
Okay, great. I got it. Let's see. All righty. So I had to clear my cache and
Can you maximize your? Yeah, there you go. Good to go. Great, thanks.
I had to clear my cache and relog in to make things work, and just to kind of resolve what happened there. I don't know exactly what was going on under the covers, but just to let you know how I recovered from that, which is a lot better than in the old nav. Sometimes we'd have to do a lot more things than that. So it works very well even when things don't work well. All right, so now I'm going to graph history, and what I started out with is the CPU utilization average. And I don't have a lot of time to cover each of these, but I'm going to just kind of highlight some things. So we've got the metrics here that you can select from. And so these are all the same metrics as are in system monitoring. Those same, the metrics, the calculations are saved in graph history, similar to what is calculated for system monitor. So you can select any of these other metrics and then refresh. And then you can also go back to your context panel and change your time, change to go to a year if you have a year's worth of data. I don't have a year's worth yet. I've started in August. So you can look at those few months. And then there's options up here, similar as Tim showed you in Navigator overall. There's the show SQL. Well, PDI was the first one, I'll just say, to show the SQL. I don't know if you remember it in the old Nav, but we always showed the SQL as well. So that's still there. And then we do a stack chart where you can compare week to week or month to month. In this case, we were looking at data over a year, so it's going to stack by month. So you can see if you have some patterns in that. And then if you go to a week or a month, then you can compare by week. So before I was comparing month to month, now I'm looking at week to week, and you can go down to 1 week's worth of data and stack it by day. So you're looking at each day and comparing how things go. And there's a lot of flexibility and interaction with the legend, with the chart itself. If you hover over here, you can see that this line is highlighted. If I am not interested in that, I can take it off of there. There's no data there. I'm going to get rid of this orange one as well. And you can see how you can manipulate the chart and get the information that you want to look at. And then there's also a slider here. You can go in and out to get the data zoomed in where you want. Now, if I hover here and I can see that there's a square data point, if I hover over it, I get the value. And then I can click on that. And this is the detailed data that I talked about. So if you've saved your detailed data, this information will be here. If you haven't saved it, you're going to see a circle here instead that's not clickable. You'll still be able to hover over it and get your values, but you won't be able to see the top contributors. So for this particular point in batch logical database IO, we are seeing the value of 90 per second, and these are the top contributors for that. And then this is similar to original Navigator, the client, where you had graph history had this sort of setup with the properties panel and then the top contributors. So that's, if you had ever used that, that will be something that you'll relate to. All right, so let's go into PDI because we don't have much time left.
Let's stop for just a second. Let's just stop for just a second.
Okay.
Is there anything new here? As this seems the same as the older version? Yeah, it's
the graphing is the same. The interaction is different, but yeah. So we've got some big things here like graph interval. You can select. You can also select multiple collections to launch into. That was an enhancement that we had before. So is that what you wanted to focus in on, Tim? And then
that was a question. Nope, that's it. The others I'll take online. Yes, Terry, everything is faster in the new Nav. That is a guarantee.
So this part will look similar to what you had before. We've got the Dojo chart, which hasn't been around that long, but it was moved right from old Nav into new Nav. We've got all the buttons here for SQL and for looking at the table data if you want. You can select multiple collections here and re-graph to view more data across time. The one thing that you want to be aware that if you want to click and zoom in on something and then drill down to another collection, you can go collection. So in this case, it's the 20 to 2045. So we will, let's see, we'll go to this one, we'll refresh, we'll see that peak, and then we can select that one and drill down into it with another chart. So just to be aware that that's one of the factors we haven't implemented yet, the ability to drill down on something when you're looking at multiple collections. But there's a lot of great enhancements here. The interactive legend and the dynamic graph are, of course, really important. And I was going to go through a lot of different collections today and perspectives, but we don't have time for that. So let's see if I've got anything else.
I think a couple other questions, if I can, that have come up, Laura, just to answer. Sure. There was a couple of things about, Terry goes, I think it's faster. And I'm like, well, yeah, obviously it's significantly faster. And then there was a question, faster's good, but does it need more resources? The answer to that is no, it does not actually. We've actually found it works very well even on relatively small partitions. But the other thing you got to remember is we don't actually want you to run this GUI on every node. The thing to remember, it's a different architecture than what was done in the past. This new architecture is running on one server in the admin one job, and that's running this core engine for the web. All of this graphing stuff that you're looking at, most of this stuff is already, it's all running in your browser, because all of the presentation layer is in the browser. And all we're doing is passing data back and forth. So the actual load on the system itself is going to be less because this is a browser-based, a true browser-based interface. And then we're connecting with the host server jobs to actually get the information off of that endpoint node that you're actually working with. So it's actually, in general, using less resources across the board, yet doing it in a much faster way because it's far more centric to the technology that we're leveraging.
I thought this was an interesting graph.
Yeah,
it shows
go ahead.
Go ahead. For me? Okay. I just had noticed this yesterday when I was looking around. And so you can see here the admin 2 server, that's old Navigator, and this is the admin 1 server. And we're utilizing, just shows here on one system, a lot less memory for that exact function of the 2 Navigators compared. So I thought that was interesting.
So, yeah, Nico's, all the documentation for Navigator, we've put the link out there on multiple things. There's a lot of documentation out there for different aspects of this, and the save restore, for example, the export import, that stuff is it's all documented out on our main Navigator page. And that link has been put in here, I believe, twice now. So everything's out in that one main page. Just have to read through that. And I also put it in the PowerPoint, which I will send to Jody as well. So Jody, I think we are at the bottom of the hour, so I'll let you take over.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tim and Laura, for not only doing live demos, which are always a little dangerous, but also doing them in a dynamic and interactive way. So as questions came up, you guys kind of showed some different content than you may have done otherwise. So really, really appreciate it. And I just wanted to say that this is the last session for this year. And I'm setting up some new sessions for 2022, or I will do, and you'll get notification in the usual way. If you're on the mailing list, you'll get notified via email. So watch the PowerWug info page and also watch out for emails from me. If you have any suggestions for future topics or any feedback, please send me an email and we'll see what we can do. And I think that most of the questions were covered. So if there's any others that haven't been covered and you have some ideas that you want, future enhancements, or if you've got particular questions, just send them my way and I will ask Tim and Laura to help me with those. So
yeah, please send anything. Don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to hear from you.
Great. I'd just like to thank all our participants today and for all of these years that we've been running the series. So thank you for your support. And as it is the last session of this year, may I wish you happy holidays and a very happy new year, and hope to catch you in 2022. Thank you all very much. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Thanks, Jyoti.